Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Undesired and Prescribed podcast. I am Jared, aka Brown Sugar, and I've been away for a little bit. Been a little bit, almost about 2 weeks since my last episode, but been busy a little bit and also been a little creatively at a drought, I guess I would say. Something like that. Oh, I've been wanting to make this video for a little bit now. I had mentioned it when I was doing like some of my NFL videos or episodes, but I feel like now is probably like a good enough time because we're approaching the midway point of the NBA season. So I just called this my little NBA forecast and just talk about what's going on in the season right now because, as I said, we are nearing the halfway point. So basically, just predictions, my thoughts and feelings on how things are going in the current landscape of the NBA. And I'm recording this the 15th of February, so at about like 9 o'clock at night. So if anything happens like tomorrow or whenever the time this video goes live, not 100% sure if it's going to significantly change the way I feel, but it's only a Monday. I think the biggest piece of news that has happened today is that Anthony Davis has re-aggravated an Achilles injury. So wish him the best. Hope everything is all right. But I know they're taking precautions with it, so hopefully it's not going to affect him at all during the season. Not going to have any sort of re-injury possibilities there, but I think I just want to jump right into it. I start talking about the Eastern Conference, and quite frankly, the East is looking a lot more interesting than what we've seen in the past couple of years because this has really been last year was the year where a bunch of teams became duos and they started to move a little bit away from the super team dynamic. There's just like a lot of really good NBA duos, and we still kind of have that now. But obviously, the Brooklyn Nets getting James Harden, that's definitely a power three, somewhat of a super team. But I don't know, it's just three guys, I would say, and I know other guys on that team, but it's definitely not going to be definitely wouldn't classify it as a super team. But I'll say the biggest surprise is definitely the Knicks. When I was taking my notes down, I don't know if they still are, but the seventh seed, wow. And now, granted, that's not really saying too much because like the bottom half of like the playoff teams in the East usually have like a don't have a 500 record sometimes. And I know they're the seventh seed without a 500 record, but I bet a lot of people don't know that they're number one in points allowed and number three in defensive rating. So that is actually surprisingly good. Now I know Thibodeau is a very well-rounded coach, especially on the defensive side. But I don't really think anybody would think that the Knicks would have a top defense in the league. Um, their offense is definitely middle of the pack at best, with basically R.J. Barrett having a really good second year. Um, and they're very limited on their 3-point shooting because they play at a slower pace. They play at one of like the slowest pace in the league right now. But for a team that has been a perennial joke for the past like decade almost, it's actually really refreshing to see them turn it around here, even if it is just a little bit. Because I think making baby steps is honestly like really nice to see because you get excited to see where this team can go next season once they get more acclimated to a system and they get players that fit that roster a little bit better. So it's going to be really interesting to see where they can take this team next year, and who knows, maybe acquire some pieces that will complement RJ Barrett more, or if RJ Barrett just has a really good third year and maybe get an all-star nod. But like I said, well away from that, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Knicks. That's very nice. Leading the East, I'll talk about the 76ers. They're the best team in the East right now with that record. They have the number one seed, and they have a really strong defense. They are top 10 in points allowed and defensive rating, and they play at an incredibly fast rate, which is very, very nice to see. A couple years ago they lost Jimmy Butler, and over this past offseason they traded away the great Al Horford. But anyway, no. I think that this is a team that is definitely well suited with Doc Rivers as the head coach versus Brett Brown, because their defense has just always been pretty good. We already know what Embiid and Simmons can do on the offensive side of the ball. Both outstanding, spectacular players. Really great to see that they're panning out to be such great young talent. But the fact that their defense has taken a significant leap this season and being a consistent one night in and night out, very, very surprising to see. Obviously, with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons being the top two players on that team, their 3-point shooting is significantly limited. They have decent enough perimeter players to where they can make those knockdown shots, but the same knock on them is going to be the same knock on them until Ben Simmons can learn how to shoot and Joel Embiid becomes a more consistent 3-point shooter. Is just the fact that they're not really a 3-point, they don't have that ability to just turn on a 3-point barrage, which so many teams in the league can do. I would even say that's one of the main reasons the Heat made it to the finals last year, is because they had that ability. They had very good defense, first of all, but that team just had the ability to just shoot at an unrealistic clip and knock down just about every single three that they were putting up, even if it looked like a bad shot. So if the 76ers had that capacity, they would be finals. They would be championship favorites in my eyes, but they don't. So fuck them. Just kidding. But Joel Embiid having an MVP level season, he's been brought up a lot when, like I said, we're it's way too early to tell, but he's been brought up quite a bit when it comes to the MVP talks. So congratulations to him. Hope he still continues to have a great season, but not my MVP. Anyways, moving on to the Bucks. Now, the Bucks are a little bit, I say they're kind of interesting because they're not the same team that they have been in the past few seasons, where they're really a great defensive team. We even started noticing that last year, in the bubble, where their defense just wasn't proving to be the same as it always has been, where they've fallen off significantly. And when I say significantly, I mean that they dropped to a middle of the pack. They think they're rated 15th overall defensive rating, but to a team that was one of the top defenses for the past 2 to 3 years, I think that's a steep drop off. But in doing so, it looked like they're making up for, especially after adding Drew Holiday too, which he is an amazing combo guard. I would definitely say he's a better fit for that team than Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe is a great combo guard too, but Drew Holiday is just a far better one and more consistent. But so it's very interesting to see that they've taken such a significant drop in defense. But what they seem to be lacking on the defensive side of the ball, which they're still a fairly decent defense, it's been equating to a better offense. So some numbers that I pulled up for the Bucks that was actually really interesting. They're number 1 on offensive rating, points per game, field goals made, and they're top 5 in 8 other offensive categories, 3 of which they're number 2 in: field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and total rebound. Obviously, we know how good Giannis is. There's a lot of a big question mark over this offseason whether or not Giannis was going to be moved, because they didn't know. He didn't show that he was committed or not, didn't sign that long-term deal. Eventually he did, but big question mark if he was going to be moved this season. So we know how well he is, but specifically moving on from him and getting picks in return, because they don't know, because they weren't able to get that quote help for him. But Drew Holiday is proving to be a very nice fit on that team. We already know how well Chris Middleton is. I think a really good pickup for them which is going like a little bit under the radar, is DJ Augustine. I think he's just been a consistent, very good backup point guard for, God, it seems like forever now at this point. It just seems like he's just always been great. But yeah, going back to Drew Holiday, averaging like 16 points this season and on 50% shooting too. That's just phenomenal to see. He obviously is a great fit for that team, a very selfless guy. So I'm happy to see them prosper, but they are the number 2 seed, 2 games behind, or 2 games behind the Sixers of that first seed, which, if I'm not mistaken, the Bucks been the first seed the past 2 seasons now. So there's obviously plenty of time, 72 games this season, so we can wait and see if the Bucks are able to climb back and take that first spot from the Sixers. Now, coming in at the 3rd seed right now, the Brooklyn Nets. And obviously this was going to be a team that everybody wanted to watch this season strictly because of the fact that Kevin Durant was coming back from a torn Achilles. And now we're going to see the Brooklyn Nets in full force with Kyrie, KD, and then all the other pieces that they have on that team. And they ended up adding James fucking Harden, of all people, as well. So that is obviously everybody's favorite team to watch right now, just for the sheer firepower on offense alone. Whether or not that equates to a championship is still remains to be seen. I do like them to come out of the East simply because of the fact of that. I think a KD-led team is very good, and I think it's kind of underrated. The fact that he went to Golden State and still won those championships, I feel like it diminishes his leadership ability. Like it doesn't like actually diminish his leadership ability, but what I'm saying is, in people's eyes, like fans' eyes, they don't think that he's a leader. But he led a team to the finals before at a significantly young age, and his last year with the Thunder, they were up 3-1, and he has much better role player, or not role players, much better sidekicks. I don't know. Much better sidekicks than Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams, because James Harden, Kyrie Irving, we already know what they can do. James Harden, probably one of the top 10 scorers in NBA history. I feel like that's like non-arguable at this point after all we've seen him do on the Rockets. And I think seeing him in a setting that is where he's not going to be the number 1 option and he doesn't feel like he has to do literally everything on the offensive side of the ball, I think might be benefiting him a lot more than what some of us would realize. But I'm really happy to see him in just a different setting. Unfortunately, Spencer Dinwiddie is injured and won't be back for the remainder of the season, so they're not going to be at full health. But James Harden, ever since getting traded there, he's still getting his points, 23 a game. It looks like he's getting more in shape as well, so that's good to see. Kyrie is back on that team. He finally decided to rejoin them. But as something that I'm looking at that's fairly interesting, that they have Kyrie listed as the shooting guard, and they have James Harden listed as the point guard. So very, very interesting. I did not know that. And I think that team is just so well built on the offensive side of the ball, because they also have Joe Harris too, a knockdown 3-point shooter. And obviously their defense is something that's going to be greatly lacking. But sticking with the theme of metrics, obviously I'm going to pull up the Nets ones. So they're, with that sheer firepower alone on offense, they are leading in multiple shooting statistics, top 10 in just about all offensive stats, minus offensive rebounding, but everything else they literally are top 10 in. That's just because of how well of an offensively oriented team they are. And honestly, KD is having such a great comeback year, and it's just really happy. I'm really happy to see KD back in the league. Like, honestly, I loved watching him play, and I'm just glad he's back in the basketball world for sure. One of my favorite players. But even as a Warrior, I like KD. I actually liked him more when he went to the Warriors. I feel like that might be a hot like a very unpopular opinion, but I don't know. Like KD and the Thunder, that I don't know. Just I I don't really care for KD and the Thunder, but when he went to the Warriors and he kind of became like a villain, I kind of like liked him even more. So he did piss me off at times. I won't lie, because he like talks like too much like shit and thinks that he's like some like hard ass. But like I don't know. For some reason, I oddly found it entertaining enough to where I like him. So, but like I said, very happy to have him back. And my Pacers, 4th seed, 14 and 13. I'd be more happy to see this team when TJ Warren comes back, because if TJ Warren comes back and he's just in and he works his way back to health, I think the team will be very well and probably could make it to the second round. Hopefully, we've never made it to the second round in a million years. It feels like. Obviously, I'm kidding, but hope we see Karis LeVert come back and 100% healthy. Obviously, he had a cancer mass removed from his kidney, so I'm just really hope he's doing well health wise. And then whenever he does end up coming back, I can't wait to see how well he plays with us, because he was having a really good season up until the point that he was traded. He was scoring almost 20 points a game, which is right around what he was doing last year. But with the fact that KD and Kyrie were like both playing, it's actually pretty amazing that he was averaging that high of points while both of them were there. But I like I said, I really can't wait to see him come back. Jumping over to the West, number 1 seed Jazz. Now I guarantee none of us saw that coming. The Jazz being the number 1 seed is definitely nothing that anybody could have predicted. I think we all thought they were going to be good, like obviously, but we saw how they played last year, and we saw like the pieces like with Mike Conley, and I don't know, they just didn't really look that good. I mean, not that good, but not good enough to be like the number 1 seed. And granted, they only have a game and a half lead over the Lakers, but that still counts for something. That we're nearing the halfway point, and they're 22-5. That's an outstanding record, and like hats off to them. Donovan Mitchell, incredible talent, and I'm happy to see him leading a team to that kind of success. But they have great all-around play. They're top 5 in both offensive and defensive ratings. But I already mentioned Mike Conley, but I want to address it a little bit more. You know, last year when he got there, he is right now. He is playing like how I feel like myself and a bunch of other people that watch the NBA envision him playing, because right now he's playing like how he did in Memphis, where he's just confident, collected, and takes his time and just makes good plays, makes solid good plays, and knocks down shots when shots need to be knocked down. And obviously he's a combo guard too, so I'm just really happy to see Mike Conley fitting in much better with this team. They're also more healthy now. I think one main reason that they lost out and didn't make it to the second round is the fact that they had lost Bogdanovich for the remainder of the year. He was a 20-point a game scorer. So obviously losing that's going to be a big blow, but he's back now, so that's going to give them another scoring option. And this year, he's averaging about 15 points, so, you know, he's doing exactly what they need him to do, you know, be that third option for them scoring-wise, because obviously Donovan Mitchell, he's going to get his, and then Mike Conley will pick up wherever he needs to, and then Joe Ingles on that team is very good, but Bogdanovich and Joe Ingles are almost interchangeable in my head. They're not interchangeable, obviously, but just in my head, I feel like they're just like the same person. That's just how it is when you're a fucking white guy in the league. Sorry, not sorry. But, you know, I hope to see them make a deep playoff run and maybe even make a play at the finals. I think is very possible, because Quinn Snyder is a very good coach. I think he's very smart in what he does, and I would really like to see them make a playoff push. But I mean, a deep playoff run. But, you know, the West is just incredibly tough. Moving down to the Lakers, they're still good. I already touched base on AD. They're still an insanely great defensive team. Frank Vogel, a lot of people just say he's a figurehead, but back when he was on the Pacers and the head coach for the Pacers, those Pacer teams that were going to the Western Conference and doing battle against LeBron, those were some of the best defenses in the league on those Pacers teams, ran by Frank Vogel, and obviously having an amazing talent like Anthony Davis down low, former Defensive Player of the Year, Marc Gasol, LeBron James, obviously, and just so many other guys, which isn't it insane that the year after they won the championship, the Lakers got even more depth as opposed to losing depth? Like, they acquired Montrezl Harrell and Dennis Schroeder. Montrezl Harrell won Sixth Man of the Year, and Dennis Schroeder was literally like the runner-up. Or I could have that flip-flopped. I'm not 100% sure, but I am just surprised at how much depth that they got back. I honestly think that they might go back to back. I'm not picking them to win the finals, but it might be the most realistic in my eyes, just because of that sheer offensive star power between AD and LeBron, obviously, and then just the fact that they have much more depth, and I just think they're a really stout team, and I really hope AD's okay, because I want everybody at their full health to see how these playoffs go, because these playoffs are going to be very entertaining, to say the very least. The Clippers were my pick to win the finals last year, and then they had that fucking playoff meltdown. They're almost similar to the Bucks, honestly, where they were favorites to make it out of the conference and then go and compete for the championship, and then they just fell apart. But I think they should be poised for another big run. Since losing Doc Rivers, the team has taken a step back on defense, but in doing so, getting Ty Lue as their coach, they have become more productive. And I'm not saying that they're being more efficient. I'm just saying that they're more productive, as in they're doing a much better job of distributing the ball and finding the open looks, which is kind of insane thinking about the team that they had last year, because they had a lot of really good depth, and they still have fairly good depth this year. Obviously not as well as what they had last year, because they lost Harold. Who else did they lose? I'm blanking on that right now, but they did lose some depth this season, so over this past season. So it's good to see that they're still a very good team. They're 20-8 right now, 2.5 out of the first seed in the West. But obviously, Kawhi Leonard, probably like my favorite player, one of my favorite players playing right now in the league. He's probably like 2 or 3. But I'm just really happy to see. I keep saying I'm really fucking happy, dude. I'm really fucking happy. Even though I'm not like really fucking happy about any of the shit that I'm talking about, I think I'm looking for a moniker to fucking say, but whatever. I think that they'll be poised for another big playoff run. I say another big playoff run, but their playoff run was very lackluster. I think they'll be poised for a big playoff run. I have them picked to win the finals. God, I hope I don't regret that, picking them again. My big concern, though, is, because I already talked about the depth, the usage rate for Kawhi in PG has significantly increased from last year to this year, and their usage rates are both pretty high. They're both over 20. I think Kawhi is in the 30s, but that's really about it on that I have on them. It's just a little bit worried about the step back that they took as a team defensively, despite the fact they added like Serge Ibaka, and then they have like the two best two-way forwards in the league on that team. So I think that has more to do with the coaching and losing a coach in Doc Rivers and replacing him with a guy who's more offensively oriented in Ty Lue. And that's not a knock on Ty Lue at all, but I think that's I think that's where the fall off is coming from. So, and also with my forecasting, I think so. I'm like a little back and forth. Every year I think the MVP should be LeBron James, strictly because of the fact he legitimately is the most valuable player on any team that he's on. He literally takes shit teams and makes them competitive. Look what happened when he went back to the Cavaliers. They literally were in the championship that year and the next year and won, and then the next year and then the next year. If he didn't have the groin injury year one with the Lakers, they would have been in the playoffs. The very next year they won the finals, and now this year they are 21-7 with the good chance to go back to back. LeBron James, greatest player of all time, better than Michael Jordan, facts, but obviously the MVP race, they wouldn't just give it to LeBron every single year, because if you take him away from any team, they're probably going to be shit. You know what the Lakers are without LeBron James right now? You take them off that team, they're literally the Pelicans from 4 years ago when Anthony Davis was on that team. So, anyways, my pick for the MVP would probably be Kevin Durant. I'm a little back and forth on that, strictly because of the fact of there is so much offensive firepower on that team now, so he might not garner as much attention as before. But so the reason that I believe KD would be MVP is he is averaging 29 points a game on 50% shooting, so about 30 points a game on 50% shooting and 40% from behind the arc. And ever since he went to Golden State, he's just become a much better defender too. But it's not even so much about the stats as so much it is about the narrative, because this is like a media award, and obviously the media loves their stories. So the story here, Kevin Durant coming back from after taking a year off, rehabbing an Achilles injury that he suffered in the finals, to be averaging numbers like this, hasn't looked like he's missed a step at all. The media just loves fucking stories, so I feel like this is a really good story. Kevin Durant, like, career-threatening injuries to some players, and he just comes back and he literally shrugs it off like as if it was nothing, literally hasn't missed a step at all, and he is going to lead a team to a second or third team in the East, maybe even the first. I don't know about them taking the first, but I think it's incredible what he has done and what he's doing. So I think he's definitely worthy of an MVP selection, and I think that there's a really good chance that he gets it. But after they acquire James Harden, I'm not so sure if he's going to garner the same attention as how he was prior to that trade. Rookie of the Year, LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball, baby. I think a lot of people disrespected him because of his dad. Because, let's be honest, a lot of people think LeVar Ball is annoying. You probably think so too. And if you don't think he's annoying, at one point or another, you definitely did. But LaMelo is truthfully a gem. I think he should have been the number one overall pick, because the draft class this season was kind of lackluster, but I always felt like LaMelo had the most upside. In Golden State, or who had the first pick? The fucking Timberwolves, and they're still like the last team in the West. Imagine that. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know what team I would have been. Like, if I don't know what team would just pass on him, in all honesty. Like, I would take him and just specifically go flip him for like more picks or another asset, because I feel like the upside with the ceiling is so high for Melo. The ceiling is so high. He is incredibly gifted athlete. He is an incredibly gifted athlete. He has great size, but the thing that I am like always thrilled to see when I do watch him play is his fucking vision. His vision is so amazing. And his pass IQ, Jesus Christ. He is like a bigger, longer, crisp, not as dark Chris Paul. And like it's just awesome to see. But LaMelo Rookie of the Year, I don't even think that could be up for discussion. I don't know anybody else who's having a better rookie season. Defensive Player of the Year, probably go Anthony Davis. Um, I mean, he's always in the discussion for Defensive Player of the Year, and having a defensive coach like with Frank Vogel has really just stepped up his game a little bit. So I'll be honest, I don't pay too much attention to Defensive Player of the Year or most improved. I just pick Christian Wood just because that's who everybody seems to be talking about. For Coach of the Year, though, for my pick, I would give that to Monty Williams for the Phoenix Suns because in the bubble, they obviously, what was it, 8-0, 9-0, something like that. So, and they're starting to find their stride, like, at the end of the, like, before the season got shut down. And in the bubble, obviously, they've become a much better team. And I think the acquisition of Chris Paul has tremendously sped up the maturity of that team a little bit, just because Chris Paul is so demanding and gets the absolute best out of every single player on his team. But they're 17-9. And a lot of people probably thought that the Suns were going to be a lot better of a team. Probably more so with the fact of how they ended last season versus the acquisition of Chris Paul. They probably thought, oh, they were getting so good last year, and then they added Chris Paul. Yeah, they're definitely going to be a playoff team. But a 4 seed at the near halfway point, they're over Portland, Denver right now, and Dallas. Dallas isn't even in the playoffs right now, but I think that's a testament to the coaching job that Monty Williams has done in making this a much more competitive team. Aside from instead of being just like fun, like a fun team to watch here and there, just because of Devin Booker. So I would definitely give him the nod for Coach of the Year. But honestly, it would be hard not to give Coach of the Year to Quinn Snyder of the Jazz if they hang on to that number 1 seed. So either one of those guys winning, I'm not going to be too shocked about. But some of my disappointments, though, I'll touch base on this a little bit. It's kind of the Wizards and the Hawks, just because of how offensively gifted those teams are, and the fact that the Wizards aren't going to be competitive at all. I mean, granted, the 8th seed is only 5 games out of their reach. They're still at the bottom, and I just think Bradley Beal needs to get the fuck up out of there, like, as soon as possible. But oh, and Toronto too. Like, what the fuck happened to them, man? It's not like they had dramatic changes to their roster or anything like that. It looks like Siakam has regressed significantly, and I don't know why that is. I mean, he's put on a nice little showing for the month of February so far, but man, he's really dropped in his production and efficiency too. So I don't know what is going on with that team right now. To my knowledge, there's no significant injuries. They even have Chris Boucher. I don't fucking know how to say his last name, but he's been a big asset for them, and I guess he could also do most improved, or I forgot 6th man of the year. Fucking just give it to Lou Will again, I guess. But yeah, those are some of my disappointments from the East. And from the West, probably say the Pelicans. Honestly, I'm a big fan of Zion, and the fact that they're 11-15. I know they're under a new coach right now, but this team should be a lot better than what they're playing right now. You know, Lonzo Ball and the acquisition of Eric Bledsoe. I know they lost Drew Holiday, and that's definitely going to be a hit to them. But, you know, this is Zion's 2nd year. And Brandon Ingram coming off the best year of his young career. And he's still playing at that high level. And also the fact that they added Steven Adams. This team should be a lot better than what they're playing to right now. and it's kind of just disappointing to see them play this poorly, but it is what it is, I guess. But hey, guys, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of the UP. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, whatever floats your boat. Link is going to be in the description. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, so that way you're up to date on all episodes of the UP. You can find us on, or find me, not us. It's just only fucking me doing this. You can find me on Spotify and iTunes. Connect with me on all platforms, please, because I genuinely love interactions between myself and people I've had no interactions with, or just whatever, you know. But yeah, feel free to interact with me. Shoot me content ideas. If you want to be part of an episode, I'm more than happy to bring people on, especially if they're passionate about a topic. I can get behind people if they're passionate about something. So. Again, we want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys when I see you guys.